I wanted to touch base with all of you today on, what we call go-to-market. Now, as I was thinking, after I told Kanchan that this is a good topic to talk about, as I was thinking about it, there was something that came to my mind in terms of, when I thought about the organizations I had been associated with, what is it that stood out for me in terms of the pillars of going to market for these organizations. So want to share those with you. I'm sure every one of us has something of it which we'll associate with or take away from it. And I'd love to hear thoughts at the end of that. So here's what I'm going to do. I will share my screen because I am told it's always nicer for people to be able to see something and not just keep seeing me. So let me know once you can see. Can you see something which just has two words on it called successful business?
We
We have a
can
black screen right
see, but we don't see any words on it.
Okay. Is this?
No, it's a blank screen.
It's a blank screen. Is it there now?
No.
No,
You don't see anything?
no.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to just move on rather than waste your time here. Anyways, it's just four pillars that I was going to show you. So the Roman structure, we've all seen the Colosseum, for instance. And as I talk about each of the four pillars, I was just going to show it to you diagrammatically. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to try and make this happen. वीडियो पॉज कर दिया बताओ क्या करना है किया है ना योर स्क्रीन शेयरिंग
Stop share.
स्टॉप शेयर
In fact, for a fleeting moment, a screen did come. I think it was just while you were just changing the.
शेयर
It was a round with some diagram made in it. Yeah, see, yeah. Going to market now.
Can you see that now?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Technical help needed. Sorry about the lost seconds. Okay, so four pillars is what come to my mind as I think through the organizations I've been associated with. And I think the first thing as we think about going to market, so when we say going to market, it's not about, because I started business today, that's the only time I think about going to market. It's whether it's a new product I'm putting out or a new customer I'm going to, or it's just deeper penetration into the existing market. To me, all of that is going to market and much more to it. I'm sure we can all think of several ways we keep going to market every day. And for me, it's important that we think about why are we in the business that we are in. And it's an important pillar for a successful going to market, if I may put it. When I say why, it kind of a little bit goes back to one of the debate points that we were talking about. What's the purpose for which we as a business are existing? And I'm a big believer on purpose, not just, even as individuals, we all need to have a purpose to our lives, which is beyond just, I'm passing each and every day, moving through the journey. It's the same with organizations. We all need to have a purpose. And in my experience, the organizations that have endured and have made a mark for themselves in the business world are the ones which have a purpose. And the purpose not as something which is fuzzy with a nice warm feeling, but purpose which is about making a difference to something. So I want to give the example of this Dutch MNC that Dipankar mentioned that I was working with. It's actually called DSM. So for those of you who was wondering what that was, and they actually had a tagline: purpose led, performance driven. And for them, everything was to do with sustainability. So they did not talk about purpose as a philanthropical objective. They talked about purpose as a business they were trying to make happen. So, for instance, when they were talking about resins or composites that went into the paint industry, for them it was important that it was going to encourage sustainability in the paint industry. So they were totally against anything that was solvent based, for instance. They would go with the whole, water based paints. And that was the tagline that was imbibed in each and every team member. That is what we used to sell to the industry. And it was okay that we were not in a certain space which was big in the country, but it was not okay that it was not sustainable. In fact, every time, and a big part of my role there was to look into M&A for them. And what I learned in a big way was a business plan evaluation actually started with sustainability. If it was not a sustainable, quote unquote, sustainable idea from an environment standpoint, from a human life standpoint, we would not do it. And this organization was more than a century old. And that is how they had endured through the times. So for me, I think it's important for each one of us, either as entrepreneurs or business leader, on why is it we are doing what we are doing. And that has to be beyond wealth creation. And wealth in the sense of the monetary word, not wealth in terms of the Ashtalakshmis as we talk about it, for those of you who may know about them. For those who don't, maybe it's another conversation. For me, the second one is if I am clear about my purpose, what is it that is holding me back from actually going all out to attain it? What is the risk that I have been facing, or what's the obstacles that have been coming in my way in order to achieve this purpose, or in order to achieve this purpose in a deeper and more meaningful and a broader way? And here I want to bring in an example of Cummins, which is where I was for a long time in the manufacturing and engineering space. Cummins was in a joint venture with one of the largest OEMs. It still is in a joint venture. And about more than 15 years back, the question for Cummins was, if I want to be the supplier of choice from a fuel efficient, from an emission compliant set of power providers, so we used to do engines and related technologies, how can I make myself embedded in every vehicle that was there in the country? So here I am with a joint venture with the largest OEM in the country, and I want to make a difference to every other OEM. The question was whether the risks or the challenges involved were more internal, which is internal to the organization or internal to an individual, a leader, or were they external? So when I thought from an internal standpoint, it was like, okay, I don't want to antagonize my joint venture partner. So I'm not going to go out and sell to anybody else. So I have already restricted myself to the base of the market that this particular OEM is occupying. But then if I even looked at it from an external standpoint, the question was whether my partner was going to be okay that I went and sold the same product to somebody else. And the challenge as the strategy leader at that time, and thereafter as the business leader for automotive, was how do I draw that line or that balance between what it is that I can do such that my partner becomes aligned with my purpose of making this technology available to a much wider canvas than what I may have with just that particular JV partner with me. And there were several things that we made happen as we did that. So one of the biggest concerns generally is, oh, I have this technology, you will give it to somebody else, so I have lost my advantage. Now, when we think about engines, it's not that it's just one core technology. There are several variants to it, and these variants is what makes a difference on performance. So here we were, number one, having a different set of people, so a team that was totally dedicated to a separate set of customers. So there was no commonality, so nothing on confidentiality was an issue. Plus, this team's KPIs were very focused on not that larger OEM, but a different set of OEMs. So, there was no day-to-day wrangling of choices that somebody had to make on whether I should spend time on the largest OEM or somebody else. Third, we actually had technology variants created. Of course, that meant there was investment coming to provide to these other players. So what that did was that created a bit of a product differentiation, not just at the core product, but even in terms of the application. So every vehicle, for instance, that gets advertised today has a different set of features that it makes available, whether it's from a looks, whether it's from an efficiency, whether it's from a feels perspective, all of that is different. So we were trying to create that differentiation for our customers with a different set of team members, such that neither confidentiality nor what was being provided as a solution to the customer were being compromised on. The bigger piece was that at the leadership level, there needed to be absolute clarity in the minds of people that we were here to serve both and not just one against another. Now, that is a conviction which was important to run through leadership, whatever the changes that were happening, whatever the thoughts that were going in the organization. Because I think for a long standing partner, it's always important that you are there for me and they need to also know what's in it for them. So here was a joint venture from where we sold the base product and all the customization happened in a different business. So with the joint venture, the JV partner, who was the largest OEM, was also making money, and we were also able to provide customization for the other businesses. So for me, it's coming back to what I put here, as my second pillar, on important to know what is restricting me from going all out, whether it's internal to me or external. The third one is, I think, a big one to all of us. I mean, everybody here seems very experienced and very well established in your businesses. And it's about the how. How am I making this happen? And to me, it's all about people at the end of the day. Even if when I talk about my life's purpose, it's all about the people. And here I want to share an example from another business that I used to run. It's called the distribution business. And we were in the aftermarket. So, it was like the B2B2C kind of a space where we were selling spare parts, services, contracts to people who were using a Cummins equipment. And here we realized we were facing a wall in terms of growth opportunities, because a big part of what we catered to was in the power gen space. And as all of us who've grown through with it have learned, that the power supply in the country has really improved in the last few years. Having said that, for a company that was selling gensets and taking care of them in the aftermarket, it was not straightforward to be growing even when the power situation had improved. So here we were trying to make a difference to our top line, because obviously it's a listed company and shareholders were looking for growth. And here was a market that was really not in our favor anymore. For decades together, we had made it happen thanks to our kind of monopoly and thanks to a power situation that was pretty bad. Of course, power generation was just one of the segments. There were several others in which our equipment used to go. Having said that, the question somebody asked, because what we made happen was double-digit growth in a company that had not experienced it for almost 40 years. We had double-digit growth in a 4-year time span. And the question that came to me was, oh, did you change the team? Because obviously you couldn't have the same team achieve the same results. And my answer to that question was actually not, because I think it's the same team that had all the wherewithal to make a difference. And to me, what they needed was, one, a little bit of seeing the possibilities that could happen with the same business. So what was that little onion that needed to be peeled to come out to see what are the other options available for growth? The second is they needed to see that you had the confidence in them to make it happen. A lot of time, we as humans give enough vibes that, I don't think you have it in you. We may not say it, we may not verbalize it, people get it if you don't believe in them. And third is, it takes small steps. It takes the drops to fill the ocean. And that's what people need to be encouraged on. So to me, it was the same set of people delivering the growth, and they needed to know they could make it happen. And guess what? They did make it happen. And I've kind of seen this unfold in front of me. So for me, it's not exactly a mantra. It was more, I was trying out. I myself wasn't exactly coming in with 20 years behind me for a similar industry's growth. So I was myself trying out, and we made it happen. And today that team's confidence in what they can make happen and how nothing is impossible is something that is unprecedented. So that is my third pillar. The last one for me is, around being clear on who it is we are catering to. And here I want to bring out my, startup experience, because I think that's something which I was, really, I was at an age where I was in a nice comfort zone with my organization. So I've had 2 stints with Cummins. And in my first stint, it was really like I felt at that age I had really arrived. I had made a difference. I had become the youngest general manager for the company. But then I had this opportunity with a startup come along. And the only reason I joined them was because they were everything that Cummins wasn't. There was no vision, mission, strategy, values, all of those good things. And by the way, there was no team also. So my job was to bring in the team, set up the structure, the systems, the processes, and of course, to kind of grow the business and to make it happen. And that was one place where I realized, so this was a KPO, and we were trying to cater to everybody and everything. So we were trying to cater to a BCG, which is in the advisory space, and we were trying to cater to a Cummins. Now I understand the offering was the same. We were doing business research, we were doing data analytics, the offering was the same. But these two customers needed to be dealt with very differently. The value of our offering to them, even if it looked exactly the same, needed to be spelt out as being very different, because otherwise we were going to totally miss the boat. And well, for a long time we did miss the boat. It was like, I was using a personal example. I was talking to somebody. I was talking about a financial advisor, and my husband and I share the same financial advisor. And I keep telling him, I said, do you realize we are two very different individuals? You may be doing the same work for us, but you need to deal with us very differently, because what I expect versus what my husband expects, what my level of knowledge versus what his level of knowledge, we are on two different planes. And unless you customize and unless you are clear on what you're offering and how you're offering to me versus my spouse is different, you're not going to cut it through. One of these days, one of us is going to leave you and move on to somebody else who understands me better. And that to me, I think is like, in a nutshell, when we are talking about going to market, we just need to be very clear on who it is as a customer. So it's like for an educational institute or for a hospital, it's great to be available for everybody, but do realize, as a parent or as a patient, I may have some very different expectations compared to somebody else. And unless in your mind you're clear about what it is, those expectations you're catering to, it's very difficult to make everybody who came your way or everybody you reached out to being as happy and getting you to unleash the potential that your business has. So anyways, that's what I wanted to share today. And the way I put it out is purpose, being aware of what the obstacles are which are coming in the way of achieving your purpose, making it very clear that the people you have are the people who are going to make it happen. Yes, sometimes you need some technical skills which the current people may not have or will take time to develop. But by and large, in terms of an aptitude, if people are on a certain plane, they will make it happen as long as they know you believe in them. And of course, I'm so sorry. We need to be very clear on what that target is that we are going after. So with that, I'm going to take a pause and would love to hear reflections from everybody.
I have a question.
Yes, sorry, I can't.
Yeah,
Make
Tushar, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. It was a wonderful session, Bhavna. Very inspiring. I have a small question. You were telling about the team, about the people. So, in my organization, I try to make them work as a team. But the same thing, that the performance of the team overall, if it repeats, it is low than the expectation. I can't expect them to be of my caliber. But every time if it is less, so the same thing is repeated, तो वो ना थोड़ा सा on every individual वो थोड़ा सा confusing. It creates a lot of confusion कि actually I'm working with the right team or not. They might have performed in some other organization, but वो एक confusion जो है, so how you get at that situation, मतलब कि have you faced, I'm sure you must have faced.
Absolutely. So the example I gave of this distribution business, as I call it, I mean, this was 700 people we are talking about
Mhm.
who were stuck with this low single digit growth. And
Mhm.
somebody, in fact, my sales head, when I joined within my first month, told me, oh, you know, we've had 2 years of nice positive, which was low single digit sales growth. So guess what? The third year has to be either a stagnant one or it may dip. You know, that's how our cyclical business runs. I
Mhm.
mean, very encouraging for somebody who was just coming in and learning the business. Um, Tushar, there's one thing I want to just share with you. You know, for any team, it's a belief, and I totally agree with it. The team is as strong as the weakest member in the team. So if I mean, when you talk about a team at large, you can't have a broad brushed approach. It's literally about each part or each link in the team being stronger, because unless that's the case, you can't have a team perform. So to me, identifying and being able to discern between the differentiated capabilities is important. And by that, I don't, and with the example I gave, I don't mean to say we need to be saddled with everybody who's refusing to come up. I can show all the positivity, I can show all the potential, or confidence, inspiration, everything. But there are certain people, and some of them toxic, as we call them, who
Yeah.
just refuse to make happen. I mean, they will just not move. I'll give them a chance, I'll give it twice, I'll give it thrice. But then I need to also know how much time I have at hand and
Mhm.
how much I'm willing to tolerate. And
Yeah.
at the end of it, if I need to make a change, I need to make a change, because yes, I am here to serve a purpose and in return make some money, perhaps, right? So to me, it can't go on endlessly, but don't have a broad brushed approach is what I'm saying, because like I said in the beginning, you know, you're as strong as the weakest link in the team. Find that weak link, and if the weak link is a struggle because he or she is just unable to do, it's one part. That's where they need support. If the weak link is a struggle because they just don't want to make it happen,
Mm.
after being given an opportunity, we need to make a difference. We need to make a change.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. May I
Sorry,
ask
Sandeep.
a question if nobody else is on?
Yes, Sandeep, sir, please.
Firstly, Bhavna, it was a very inspiring talk. Congratulations. I mean, you've come from a sector which is very well organized. BCG and Kirloskar Cummins are two of the most respected companies. And then you went and joined a KPO as a startup. I'd like your view on one aspect. Of course, I understood the theory of constraint, where the weakest link is what holds you back. That's what we are taught from the beginning. But I have come across another point of view, especially where it comes to density of the brilliant. I'm coining that phrase myself, but there is something similar to it. It says that if you have even a handful of extremely capable guys, maybe three or four very capable guys, they are worth more than 30 average performers. Now, I'm coming to my question on it. What happens is, if you are a driver or you are an ice cream scooper, you can only do twice as good as an average performer. It doesn't require brilliance. You can't be driving at 25 times better capacity or causing less accidents, etc. But if you're on the technical side, like a software writer who writes coded language, anywhere where there's technical brain involved, especially in a KPO as opposed to a BPO, there my question is, if you find somebody who's 5 times, 10 times, 20 times more capable, of course he has a packet, there's a cost involved. Is it better to engage such people who
Mm.
are 20 times better than an average person than just engaging average guys and getting median kind of work done from them? I'd like to have your views, especially in your startup. You were catering to BCG on one side with Kirloskar Cummins on the other, customizing the package for them. How easy would it have been for you to have specialists of the highest order? Of course, budget being a constraint, but specialists of the highest order vis-a-vis average performers. You've
Mm.
been in both the companies. You know exactly what I'm saying.
Right, right. Sanjeev, to me, it's never the extremes that have worked. So the dense brains versus the average. In fact, I used to, there was a lot of debate, especially when mature organizations are at an inflection point where, they've suddenly one day realized, oh, we need to have a difference made. We need to do something much bigger, broader, better. At that point in time, the organization starts questioning these averages. To me, you need them, because I mean, unless you are in that very niche. So for example, let me take a BCG example. And of course, it's been, almost 20 years since I was with them. But BCG had consultants. BCG had staff that used to do literature searches. BCG had staff that made presentations. In fact, thanks to them, I still struggle to make presentations because I was never expected to make them. The point I'm trying to make over here is that you will need that combination to deliver that final product. It will never be just the brainiest, because the brainiest need all this support. Same example with Cummins. When we were doing the distribution business, I mean, yes, I need the people to go and find those new products and find those features we can sell to in the market, and make those nice marketing collaterals, packages, all of those, come up with the schemes, the discounting, tell me what the profit impact is, all of those analysis. So I'll have all those questions. But then I needed people who on a daily basis were willing to take out 1,000 invoices and ensure collections were happening against those, who could take customer calls, who could answer the channel. I needed them. I mean, in fact, the day they weren't around, the brainiest ones were not going to be able to make happen that side of a business. So to me, the question is on finding which set of people is best for what. I think sometimes what happens is we are expecting, cows from horses and, elephants from giraffes. We expect different behaviors from people, and that's where we go wrong.
Okay. Especially with the KPO, especially with that, on a startup.
Absolutely. I mean, it was, in fact, there was a whole, so I wouldn't put it out on a piece of paper because it was not the best thing to do. But if I had my personal notebook, I would have a spectrum on which people fell. And for me, it was not every day that it was the brainiest ones who were my go-tos if I had a customer delivery to do. Sometimes there were people along the spectrum who needed to move things.
Thank you.
Ma'am, quick question. You spoke about how you achieved double-digit growth for the distribution company. Yes. Can you share some of the things, or what did you implement that actually led to the double-digit growth?
You sure you want to get me started?
Just a couple of pointers would be great for all of us, actually.
Absolutely. No, I'd love to. See, Sankalp, you must understand, this is like a 50-year-old organization. So for them, the starting point used to be, I sell parts, I sell service, I sell contracts. And those were the three verticals I sell. Okay. And business used to run by that. Now, if anybody in this group right now knows that if I have a genset, I would be buying all three of them. And if all three of those resided with three groups of people and all three reached out to me for selling one or the other, you know what happens with the customer. Right. The problem was that I was just one genset customer. There was mining, construction, oil and gas, railways, defense. And within each of these, so let's say power generation, I am just a residential customer who probably has a bungalow with one genset. There is ICICI Bank with a network of branches. There is the telecom companies with tons of towers, and so on and so forth. So the point was actually to figure out the segment we were catering to, what was the utilization there, what were the patterns that people were in terms of getting us. So some people were running the gensets because once in a year, Adani Power had some tripping that happened and we all went in a blackout. Somebody was running it only then, but somebody else was actually constantly running it because they did not want to take a chance, even with the 99.9% power supply that was there. So they were constantly running it. Now, if I was doing parts, service, solutions, I was obviously not going to make these distinctions. For me, if I had to do pricing, if I had to chase opportunities, I had to know the segments and the utilization. And that was a big task we did. We have 500,000 plus equipment running in the country with Cummins engines. We needed to have a database of all of those, very similar to what Shiv was saying earlier. If I had a database of all the potential customers, That would be my starting point. Having that database was the starting point. The second was the fact that for each of these, we actually did an evaluation on what was the opportunity with them. So if you have a genset in your house and if you run it twice a year, when you have those blackouts which were unpredictable, you would have a certain 100 rupee usage for the years versus that particular hospital, which for its surgery room runs it every time there's a surgery. Between the two of you, you are 100 rupees, they are probably 100,000 rupees for me. How much of each of you is coming into my wallet? And whom am I going to chase after? Those were literally the tiny bits of cents that we collected on opportunity and discovered with the same team, we were less than half the market. And if being a monopoly, when we were, not anymore, we are less than half the market, what happens if we are going to chase after this business, which of course we were not used to because we were in this monopolistic state of mind. If we have to chase business because we want to make growth happen, whom would I go after and with what value proposition? So in a nutshell, Sankalp, this is what we did.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Members, any other questions?
Bhavna, even today we have Kirloskar or Sudhir Gensets as the two single largest suppliers. I mean, in my factory, I've got a 175 kilowatt genset. It's Kirloskar. So one doesn't want to take a chance. It's a heavy investment. It costs 8 lakhs. So just wanted, one doesn't take a chance here. The name carries weight and the quality and the
Yes.
parts and the service. Everything carries its own name with it.
But there is enough in the unorganized sector that still manages its way through.
I'm sure.
So that was the struggle we realized we had landed ourselves in because we have been a bit complacent.
Mhm.
And just a little correction. So Kirloskar now is no longer
With Cummins. Yeah.
partner with Cummins. So Cummins is Cummins India Limited and
Yeah.
Kirloskar is competition for it.
Yeah, that's right. It's become
Right. And yes, Sudhir is the genset maker.
yeah.
So Sudhir, Jackson, Powerika, these are the names across the country that you see. Sudhir is the most prominent in Gurgaon.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Bhavna, for a lovely share of your detailed strategy and how can we go about creating one for ourselves.